Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Get out there, play hard, enjoy those games.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Hey, Youngster! We should rename our show Go Big to the Tournament and Go Home. Because the Big Ten has dropped a big poo-poo in the middle of the NCAA Tournament. Indiana has not been good to them. Holy cow! Unbelievable. Now, granted, the whole tournament has crazy upsets.
Yeah.
We didn't think the Big would, I'm going to say it this way. I did not think the Big would be embarrassed this way. I really did not. Because it's crazy. We had more Big Ten teams, not like necessarily to the Final Four, but at least getting out of the first weekend. This is nuts. Crazy nuts. But how are you doing today before we get into Big Ten basketball?
I'm doing good. I had 4 days off, all 4 days for the tournament. I didn't literally get to see a second from every game, but there were probably 5 games tops that I just straight up didn't see any of. Obviously, I didn't watch every single second of every single game because that's basically impossible. But I watched... So there was about 50 hours of basketball that I could have watched, starting with Michigan State on Thursday night. I got home from work. I taped that. I watched all of that. Michigan State-UCLA game, the playing game. And then Friday, literally, I saw, every Big Ten game. I saw every second, I think, basically, of every Big Ten game this weekend. And then other games, obviously.
Well, that's good. Since we do a Big Ten show, I'm glad that you actually watched the Big Ten lose.
Yes. Yeah, I saw, outside of a bathroom break, I saw every second that I could have from every single Big Ten game. If there were 2 Big Ten teams on at the same time, I have 2 TVs in my little, quote-unquote man cave here. And that's what I was doing. So I watched probably 45 out of 50 possible hours of basketball I could have watched the last 4 or so days. So I've watched a lot, and my bracket is completely busted. Nobody cares about my bracket, but like a lot of people, their brackets are completely busted. If you had Gonzaga playing Baylor in the final, you're probably doing okay. If you had Bama coming out of the, the East region, okay, cool. They're still alive. If for some reason you had Michigan or Florida State, then you're happy with it. But there were just, like you said, Troy, so many upsets. It wasn't just Big Ten, but teams like Texas losing in the first round.
Oklahoma State.
There was Oklahoma State in the second round to Oregon State. The first round had a lot of upsets. But, yeah, the Big Ten, we'll get into every single team, and, we're going to recap I have notes on every single game that every single Big Ten team played this weekend. I'm ready to talk about it all. But how are you, Troy?
Doing good. Ready to rock and roll. I don't know. It's hard to get excited when we're going to talk about a lot of misery. Mm-hmm. But I love doing the show, and we're always real on the show. So
yeah.
I'm just going to be me. I'm probably not going to sound depressed like you are. Well, not today. But okay. I'm going to give it a go. It's just, I think I'm more shocked. I think that's the right word. I'm more shocked than even disappointed. I'm just shocked. My Badgers killed me because I had North Carolina beating Baylor. I knew that was going to happen. Did I not tell you that on the show? I said the Badgers will probably now beat North Carolina because I picked them. So I knew the Badgers were going to win the first-round game because every time I do that, it bites me in the rear. So, but again, it's all good. We do our show. We're real. Time to rock and roll, youngster. Take it away.
Yes. So I think I'll give my holistic thoughts at the end as opposed to the beginning on what happened these last 4 days. There's a number of things like we'll talk about it at the end of the show. But for now, going through region by region, team by team, game by game here, we're going to cruise along very quickly with some of these. But West region, there was only Iowa in there from the Big Ten, so that's the only team we have to talk about from there. In their first game, they beat Grand Canyon 86-74. They controlled the game pretty much throughout. They didn't play a strong second half. Grand Canyon got back into the game, but again, Iowa won by 12. They moved on. I don't have anything there. Troy, with any of these games, if you feel like interjecting, feel free. But for a game like that,
I got to let the listeners that are new to the show know that I actually worked for Grand Canyon. But, however, I could not find myself enough nerve to cheer for Grand Canyon. It was Iowa all the way. But it was funny because I told you that when we were doing that preview show for that region.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know, that night when I went home, I went to my basement and actually there was, I have a ton of not memorabilia. I was a recruiter. So I have all kinds of giveaways. So I have a coffee cups, tumblers, pens. I am not kidding. I went downstairs. My wife needed me to find a hot glue gun. And where was the hot glue gun? In the box of all the Grand Canyon stuff.
That's funny.
I just started cracking up. I nearly peed myself. It's like I just told the youngster this morning that I had worked for Grand Canyon, but nothing to say in game one, youngster. It was Iowa. They were expected to win. Grand Canyon, that school, congrats to them for getting in the NCAA tournament, though. That was
right.
Good for them.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got on that game.
Yeah, the second round for Iowa, they played Oregon, who was a 7th seed, and they lost 95-80. Garza obviously did his thing. Hats off to him and what he did. By the way, all these players, just so fans know, again, like we've mentioned on the show over the last few months, they can all return technically if they want to, because this year is not counting against their years of eligibility. So if Garza wanted to come back, it doesn't seem like he's going to. But if he wanted to, technically he could. So that's just something to keep in mind with all these teams, all these players, is they could return for another year, even if they're a senior. So just wanted to throw that out there. But anyway, Garza did his thing. Iowa scored 80 points in this game. It's not as though they played poorly offensively. But again, defensively, they gave up 95 points. They couldn't stop Oregon. Oregon was hitting everything. And that's part of the thing with basketball, is that you can say Iowa played horrific defense and it was absolutely terrible, and Oregon scored 95, so Iowa's a piece of garbage defensively. But at the same time, if you watch the game and Oregon is hitting all their contested shots, where as opposed to shooting 30% from three on contested shots, they shot 60% from three on contested shots in this game.
I text you, and I even text you the wrong name because I was so discombobulated. But
yeah.
Oregon was they were shooting the lights out.
Yeah.
I was listening on the radio, and I remember I gave you a thumbs up. I usually don't like an hour drive to a customer, but not today I can actually listen to the game, so I had a thumbs up on it.
Right.
And is Oregon going to miss? Do they miss? That basket must have been about 10 feet around in circumference. They were knocking down everything. And even the guys that were on the radio were like, wow. And there were some letdowns on defense. They gave them some easy drives to the hoop.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, youngster, Oregon scored in the 90s, but hey, let's not poo-poo Iowa's offense. They scored in the 80s. Normally in college basketball, you score 80, I'm going to give you a 90% chance to win. Unfortunately, Oregon was just better offensively. So it was a good game from what I heard on the radio.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Iowa just, I think it was 46-46, I believe. It might have been 42-42 at late stages of the first half. And then Iowa ended up down 56-46 at the end of the first half. And it was like, okay, well, this was a really good back-and-forth game until the end of the first half, and then Oregon went up 10. And then in the second half, Oregon, they scored another 39, but they scored 56 points in the first half. So they ended up with 95. And before, when I was talking about sometimes it's just bad defense, sometimes the other team is just hitting absolutely everything and there's nothing you can do about it. That was just a random example. I'm not saying that's what happened in this game. But Iowa's defense, yeah, it's not great. Yeah, it was better this year than it has been in previous years. It was still very average. So if you're playing an Oregon team who can shoot well and they're rested, they had, I think it was 10 days rest because they had the first round bye because VCU had to forfeit, literally. And so Oregon had plenty of rest, and you can say, well, you can come into the game sloppy because you haven't played in 10 days, or you can be so well rested and rejuvenated and ready to go against Iowa, and you had extra time to think about Iowa. That's something, too. Regardless, Oregon played really well. Iowa's defense could not handle Oregon's offense. That was it. So from a grand standpoint, Troy, from Iowa, it's like, yeah, they lost to a 7 seed by 15 points. I think it's fairly clear that Oregon's better than a 7 seed, and I think the Pac-12 has clearly shown in this tournament that they were underseeded all the way around. Like, no matter what team it is, they were just underseeded. They were not given enough love. And in the Big Ten, the top dogs especially, it seemed as though they were just overrated coming into this thing. That's what it seemed like. For Iowa, this
hurt next year.
Result,
it'll hurt next year on Selection Sunday, I guarantee it.
Yeah. I'm sure you're right. For this result, I'm not shocked Iowa gave up 95 points to a high-scoring team. Because Iowa's defense, again, they gave up 90-something to Gonzaga earlier in the year. And for them to give up 95 points to a team who's going to shoot 44% from three and almost 56% from the field, I mean, it's disappointing because you're a 2 seed losing to a 7 seed. It's an upset. But that one was not crazy shocking to me. I expected Iowa to win. Don't get me wrong. I was surprised they lost. But at the end of the day, if Iowa was going to lose in the tournament, it's because they were going to give up 95 points to a really good offensive team. And that's what happened. So I'm disappointed in Iowa, for sure. But I was not shocked by that one. Anyway, moving on to the East region, Michigan State. They played UCLA in that play-in game, and they lost 86-80 in overtime. We've seen what UCLA has done the past few days in this tournament, and again, clearly they're underrated. They're much better than an 11th seed.
I'm going to interrupt you there, youngster, because if you remember the preview show, I said this was my 11th seed no matter who wins. Michigan first round wins.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Michigan State could have moved on too. So,
yeah.
They're basketball, aren't they?
Yes. For this game against UCLA, Michigan State, I mean, in the first half, they played great. They were up. I'd have to pull up the box score, but I will pull it up. But I think they were up 6, 8, 10 points. But at the end of the day, like UCLA, they came back in the second half. They made their run. And late, Michigan State had a chance easily to win the game, but they made a few key mistakes down the stretch. And UCLA got it to overtime and then just outplayed them in overtime, obviously winning by 6 points. But Michigan State was right there. And they had UCLA beat. They just made mistakes late in the game, and UCLA played better than them in overtime. That was the game. Michigan State looked like the better team in the first half for sure. And UCLA looked like the better team in the second half. So it went into overtime, and it just didn't go Michigan State's way. Again, at the end of the day, like, you can give all the crap in the world to the Big Ten, but Michigan State losing in overtime to UCLA, as we've seen what UCLA is, I'm not going to throw crap on Michigan State and say that they suck. I'm not. because Michigan State, they're probably around a 9 seed-ish, 8 seed-ish, and UCLA, clearly they're better than an 11 as well. Like, they just lost to a pretty good team. I'm not going to give Michigan State crap for that. But that's just me. Again, a lot of people coming out of this weekend.
Where's UCLA right now, Youngster? Where's UCLA right now?
They're in the Sweet 16. What? They're ready. Yeah, they're ready to play Alabama. So.
Yeah.
UCLA is pretty good.
I agree with you. The one thing with this game, Youngster, it was very not Tom Izzo-like for the Spartans to crumble at the end, like you said. And even with the game going to overtime, I usually will put my money on a Tom Izzo team at tournament time in overtime.
Right. Yeah.
But it just seemed like there wasn't the Tom Izzo mojo there this year. And I don't know why. But like you said, when that game was getting down to the final minutes, I was like, all right, yeah, my Michigan State pick, my Michigan State upset in round 1, or technically round 2, here we go. Come on, Sparty. And then UCLA did what they did, and then UCLA won their game. So I was like, well, I knew that either team that won that game was going to be pretty darn good and had a chance to advance. So yeah, they lost to a better team. I mean, those were 2 evenly matched teams in my mind, Young.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Like you said, State won the first half, UCLA won the second half in overtime. You play that game again, it could be the opposite result. Michigan State could beat UCLA. I think they're pretty close. But again, at the end of the day, the haters of the Big Ten are going to say, well, guess what, old man? So far in your show, you're 0 for 2. So I can't argue with the record. No, absolutely not. Also in the East, to kick it to the top, Michigan, the top seed. I'm not going to save them for last because I'm going through the East region right now. But that 16 seed game against Texas Southern, they won 82-66. Michigan was up 18 at half. Other guys stepped up with Livers being out. But again, it was against a 16 seed. I mean, there's nothing, to ride home about there. The second round, they played LSU. They won that game 86-78. LSU was pushing Michigan early in that game. Michigan was down, I want to say 8 at one point. It might have been a little more than that. But Eli Brooks was hitting. Pick of number 1 looked really good at that point. Looking really good. Yeah, it did. But Eli Brooks came together and had some very timely shots for sure to keep Michigan in the game at that point. Eli Brooks finished with 21, which I'm not sure if that was a career high or not, but it very well could have been. He had 21 points. Shondae Brown had 21 points in this game. Dickinson, who everyone looks to, he had 12. Franz Wagner, who's the top NBA prospect on this team, he had 15. So you've got Eli Brooks stepping up for 21. Shondae Brown had 21 points. I don't know if we've said Shondae Brown's name on this show this year. He is a key reserve, but again, we haven't necessarily said his name on this show this year. Those 2 guys combining for 42 is massive. Again, Livers is out. Somebody has to step up, and those 2 guys did, especially against LSU, who can score with basically anybody. Michigan needed to score 80, and they did. So that was massive. Michigan shot 53% from the field, 40% from 3. Cam Thomas, LSU's superstar, had 30 points. But Michigan got stops, especially in the second half. That's where the game really turned. Michigan was down 51-45 and then went on a 10-0 run. And then LSU went up by 5 again later in the game, but Michigan went on a 14-1 run. Again, part of that is offense, sure, but part of it is getting stops. In order to get a 10-0 run, to get a 14-1 run, you have to string together a bunch of stops. And that was the difference in the game. Was Michigan could play defense against LSU. LSU couldn't really play defense against Michigan. So, shout out to Michigan for avoiding a much better than an 8 seed type team in LSU. I think they probably play like more of a 5. They took Alabama, I think, to overtime in the SEC title game. Or they took them to the last second. Yeah, I think LSU was underseeded. I thought they should have been up a couple more seed lines.
Sure.
I picked them because of their their conference tournament run. That's why I thought they could do some things against Michigan, and they were doing things against Michigan.
Yeah.
They were.
They won the first half,
again,
and Michigan won the second half.
It was a good game.
Yeah.
So at least we got Michigan going. I did not pick them to advance, Youngster. I thought LSU could take care of business, but, hey, just because I host a Big Ten show when I'm doing my bracket, I'm trying to be real.
Yeah.
So, good for Michigan to keep the Big Ten hopes alive. But they've got a tough road. They've got a tough road ahead of them.
Yeah. I think that was probably the best part of my bracket was this little section here. Pretty sure it was. I'm looking at a bunch of red on my bracket here. Yeah, that was the best part of my bracket was this little section here. I got it perfect. Michigan winning their game, LSU beating St. Bonaventure, Colorado moving on, Florida State moving on. Then I have Florida State beating Colorado. They did. Michigan beat LSU. They did. That little section there, I was perfect. The rest of it, I was god-awful. I mean,
still got Alabama. I've still got my Alabama down there, Youngster.
Yeah, I don't have Texas. So they're done. Like I said, the rest of my bracket is pretty bad. But so Michigan, again, you want to give shit. You can say that on the show. You want to give shit to the Big Ten? Sure. Give shit to the Big Ten. But at the end of the day, I don't blame Michigan State.
I can't believe you throwing out the language. You're usually a little more conservative on that end. I'm usually the one catching myself ready to drop an F-bomb on all our shows.
To be fair, Troy, seriously, first of all, on radio shows, podcasts, I basically never curse. In real life, I certainly throw around more language than I do on the radio.
Oh, I know you do. I text with you enough. I know.
But for this show, seriously, if there's a show to use language, this would be the podcast to do it. This show. Like, the Big Ten sucked. They played like garbage. They played like shit. Some people think they suck. Whatever you want to say. Like, you can certainly just go to twitter.com and talk about how, people think the Big Ten played like ass this past weekend. They played like shit. Like, whatever you want to say, like, you could say it. You saw it on Twitter, on social media, the entire weekend. There's people giving the Big Ten crap.
Yeah, we won't drop the F-bomb on the podcast. But
no, try not to.
Because I know we have a nice, very professional listening audience. So yes, I will contain myself. But seriously, again, Iowa, that was disappointing. Their loss. Michigan State, okay, fine. But I don't throw shade on Michigan State and Michigan. Obviously, they're playing well right now. Moving on in the East region. So far, Big Ten, slight disappointment, I guess, with Iowa. But let's keep moving on. Let's see what happens. Maryland. Yeah, we gotta keep her moving, Youngster.
Yes. Maryland, the 10 seed in the first round, they beat UConn, the 7 seed, 63-54. Okay, Maryland got good production from their two star guards in Ayala and Wiggins. They held UConn to 32% shooting. UConn had, however you say his name, Book Knight, whatever it was, talked about it in the preview of this game, that when he was in the Ross on the court, when he was available to play, UConn was pretty good. When he was not, UConn was worse, and so they were a 7 seed this year. But Maryland won this game by 9 points. And again, they held UConn down to 32% shooting. That's a nice win. Nicely done. To the second round, they play Alabama. Alabama scores 96 points and wins by 19 points. Maryland's done.
Woo!
Alabama rained a bunch of threes, which they either dunk, get layups, or shoot threes. That's just their model. They have that Houston Rockets mentality. That's no mid-range at all. I think the stat was shown that it was Alabama this year, Troy, has scored 3% of their total points from mid-range this entire season. 3%. So,
sometimes you got to look to the big boy game and say, if they're winning up top, let's try it down here.
Yeah. But point being, if you're going to step inside the three-point line.
Because honestly, you youngster, what is the NBA?
Oh, yeah.
Dunks and three-pointers.
Right. And part of that is not for flash. Part of that is efficiency. Like, yeah, it's better to get a dunk than a 17-footer. It's better to take a 21-footer as opposed to an 18-footer, just based on the point value. So there's absolutely something to that. There's a reason why teams do that. There's a reason why three-point shooting is up now more than ever in NBA history. But so anyway, Alabama scoring 96 points against the Maryland defense. That's not shocking to me. Again, Maryland beat the 7th seed in the first round and then lost to Alabama, who's just they're Alabama. They're really good. That's again.
Yeah,
I'm not
sure how many people would even have picked Maryland over Alabama in this.
No,
contest.
Nobody. So again, I don't blame Maryland for their outing. They did fine.
No, they won their first game. They were a lower seed, evenly matched. 7-10 is usually an evenly matched game. They took care of business convincingly, and then played Alabama, they're a 10. Right. Alabama's a 3. They should have lost. Maybe not by 19, but nobody picked Maryland over Alabama. No. And if there's somebody listening that did, I'm sorry. I'm not shaming
Then they live in
you.
Maryland.
Probably not. That's like the Wisconsin homers at the work pool I have that had Wisconsin in the championship game. That is being a true homer. That's not being real.
Right.
So, I mean, Maryland did what Maryland needed to do. They won their first game, lost to Alabama. Hey, good season, Maryland. All right, move on, youngster.
Absolutely. So, again, like, to this point, okay, of the 4 teams, Michigan's still playing. Iowa should still be playing. They disappointed. The other 2, they were a 10 and 11 seed. It is what it is. South region, Ohio State. This is where it starts getting bad. Ohio State, obviously they played Oral Roberts. They lost 75-72 in overtime. Oral Roberts is still playing, by the way. They beat Florida in the next round. Oral Roberts, and I said this during the show, this is a possible 15-2 upset. This is possible. I said it on the podcast. I said it on Twitter. Would not be shocked if Oral Roberts beat Ohio State. Oral Roberts beat Ohio State. Don't give me too much credit because at the end of the day, I picked Ohio State to win the game. I didn't have the balls to pick Ohio State to beat Oral Roberts. But I said it was one of the more probable upsets. If there was going to be a big upset, would not be shocked. Part of that was because of Max Asmus, who was the nation's leading scorer. He scored 29 points in this game. One of their bigger guys had 30 as well. That was surprising. But Asmus doing his thing, like at the end of the day, he does that to everybody. Ohio State from 3 in this game shot 21%. That's a killer, especially when you're playing a team who loves to shoot the 3 as well as they do. And Dwayne Washington, it just seemed like Ohio State tried ISOing him too much, and he shot 7 of 21 in this game. He's a really talented player, but if that's what you're basing your offense on is just one guy doing his thing and he's having an off night, then you're going to lose. Liddell had 23 and 14. He had a couple of mistakes late in the game, and then he posted on Twitter some of the death threats he got and whatnot, and people talked about that. I'm not going to talk about that on the show. But Ohio State, at the end of the day, completely disappointed in this tournament. Am I shocked by this upset? No, I'm not. But, yes, they did completely disappoint and started the fuel to the fire for people thinking the Big Ten sucked this year.
Yeah, and I changed my mind on some Ohio State picks that I had. I was high on them. I thought they could make a nice run, and luckily, I didn't give them a deep run. But like you said, Oral Roberts, credit to them. They're still playing. They're in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
You know, go 15 seeds. 15 seeds. Go, 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 go. Who do you think I'm cheering for the rest of the way, youngster? I love the underdog. I do. All right. I have nothing else about Ohio State. You covered it all. Move on.
Yeah, they disappointed. Like Iowa, they disappointed, for sure. Purdue, another team that disappointed. It's not just that they lost to North Texas, who was a 13 seed, in overtime, by the way. It's not as though Purdue got blown out. They got it to overtime. But at the end of the day, like, North Texas was really controlling this game. This was not some miracle upset. North Texas was by far the older team. Purdue is known as being a younger team. North Texas is very veteran-laden, and it kind of showed in this game. Purdue was not so much more talented than North Texas that they could just rely on their talent to win. Again, this game went to overtime, but North Texas won, and again, they were in control really most of the way in this game. Travion Williams, Zach Edey, the two bigs that should have had a huge advantage in this game, they really never got going. That's, Jaden Ivey, the talented freshman for Purdue, he played well in this game, but otherwise he really didn't have a ton of help alongside him. And, at the end of the day, Purdue was just not talented enough, for some reason, couldn't get Travion Williams or Edey going on the inside, and that was the difference. So North Texas could play the way they wanted. They neutralized Purdue's bigs, and North Texas is just better, older on the perimeter. It's just a fact. So, again, Purdue was a big letdown for the Big Ten for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. Where they finished in the Big Ten, you and I were both surprised about that. We didn't think they would finish where they did. So they exceeded the expectations of a lot of people. But now you come into this tournament as a 4 seed, and you
right.
keep saying, Youngster, well, they got it to overtime. The thing is, Youngster, they got outplayed by a 13 seed. They got outplayed.
Yeah.
Like, they're lucky they got to go to overtime. But you're playing a 13 seed. You finished, what was they? They finished 4th in the Big Ten. How do you let that happen?
Right.
This is one of those games where I look at it and say, holy crap. Big pile of crap. Big pile of poo-poo Purdue. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. There's nothing good to say about this game. This was a major disappointment. You can't sit and debate and say, well, no. Guess what, Purdue? Major poo-poo moment. That's all I got to say. Move on.
Yeah. Wisconsin. Last team here in the South region from the Big Ten. They beat North Carolina 85-62. They had one of those games where they shot really well. And North Carolina can't shoot well. The one thing that was really surprising about this game was North Carolina had 12 offensive rebounds, and holistically, and that's a solid amount. But holistically, rebounding-wise, Wisconsin didn't get dominated, and that was massive. And then, again, not only that, but, yeah, absolutely. Davison had 29 points. The team shot 48% from 3, 50% from the field. It was just one of those games where Wisconsin got hot. And the surprising part, again, was North Carolina didn't dominate them on the interior. So that was, again, Wisconsin, okay, you played really well against North Carolina. Good job. And then what happened in the second round? They played Baylor and lost by 13 points. At the end of the day.
Hey, let's give Bucky some credit. They hung in there for 5 minutes.
But
it wasn't over at the tip.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Troy, they were supposed to lose to Baylor by 13 points. Who actually thought Wisconsin was going to beat Baylor in that game? Nobody.
Oh, there's a lot of people in my work pool. Got them in the Final Four, Elite Eight.
People in the state of Wisconsin, yes.
Wisconsin homers.
Right. Like Maryland, Alabama. The only people who seriously picked Maryland to beat Alabama live in the state of Maryland. Nobody else picked that. The only people who thought Wisconsin was going to beat Baylor.
But I picked North Carolina, Youngster, when we went through the preview show, I had North Carolina in the Elite Eight because of their size.
Yeah, me too.
And that's the one thing with this region. I thought with their size that they would be able to get a lot of teams with a one-and-done. Now, against Wisconsin, the way Wisconsin shot, well, guess what? They weren't getting – it didn't matter about one-and-done. They were one-and-done in the basket. And if I would have picked with my heart, then I would have picked Wisconsin, I would have picked Baylor, and I'd still be alive in all these bracket challenges. Holy cow. That Bucky Badger just kills me. I'm not even mad that they lost to Baylor. I'm mad that they beat North Carolina. They ruined my bracket.
Yeah. But so Baylor's
I knew they weren't going. Oh, they're 10 times better. 10 times better. All right, move on.
My point here is that I don't throw shade at Wisconsin at all. They did a nice job in this tournament. At the end of the day, they lost to, it looks like, the second best team in the country, if not the best. So it is what it is. Moving on, the Midwest. Two teams here, Illinois and Rutgers. I guess I'll start with Illinois. I was dead wrong, by the way, about Illinois. I thought they were going to win the whole thing. I thought they weren't going to lose another game starting whatever it was, February or whatever it was. I thought they were just going to – I knew they'd get tested, but I didn't think they'd lose another game for a while. And at the end of the day, they lost in the second round. And first round, they beat Drexel 78-49. They dominated that game. Good for you. Second round, they played Loyola Chicago. They lost 71-58. Again, this was one of those games like Purdue North Texas where they just got outplayed the entire game. Like Loyola Chicago is just better. Loyola Chicago shot 51% from the field, 40% from three. Loyola Chicago, entering this game, had the number one ranked defense in the country in terms of efficiency, and it showed. Like, everyone knew they were, based on KenPom, and I shout out KenPom.com last week, and, researching this tournament and how good these teams are, they had Loyola Chicago as the number 9 team in the country, just entirely. And they were an 8 seed. So there's a reason why this site has Loyola Chicago as the number 9 team in the country, because part of the reason is because they have the number 1 defense in the country. And again, it showed in this game. And Illinois just, I don't know what it looked like watching the entire game. It looked like they wanted to feature Kofi Cockburn, which he's not right now. He's not their best player. Like, he's not probably their second best player. I know people think they have this 1-2 unbelievable Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Cockburn punch that's impossible to beat, but Kofi Cockburn is not refined. He's bigger than everyone else. He's athletic for his size. He looks like a monster against college players, but technically sound, the Loyola Chicago kid, Krutwig, he played like a better player. He easily had a better game. He had 19 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals. He was clearly better than Kofi Cockburn. Which one's going to get drafted? Which one's going to get drafted in the first round, let alone, get drafted at all? It's going to be Cockburn. But Krutwig in this game as a senior is so much more refined. This is how the upsets happen, is that these senior, teams play these younger teams, and because they've been with each other for 3, 4, 5 years, some of them, they can beat more talented quote-unquote teams. And that's exactly what happened here. Illinois' got way more talent than Loyola Chicago does. I think nobody disputes that, but Loyola Chicago just completely shut them down.
Play this game, Youngster, 10 times. Play this game 10 times. Illinois wins 8.
I don't know. They have so much more talent, but Loyola Chicago it's not as though Loyola Chicago shot the ball insanely well and won 86-84. They killed them. I mean, it was a 13-point game, but it felt like a 20-point game. They just looked better. They were quicker. They were faster. They were way better defensively. The way they played defensively is how Illinois played defense down the latter portion of the season. They looked phenomenal. Illinois did not look phenomenal in this game at all. They couldn't defend Loyola Chicago, let alone score. They couldn't do anything. I mean, I was just dead wrong about this game and clearly about this team, because I thought they were way better than them. And maybe you're right, Troy. Maybe Illinois beats them 8 times out of 10, and maybe this was a complete fluke, but they have the number 1 rated defense for a reason. And I think, they were way underseeded as an 8 seed, but again, if Illinois is that good, if Illinois is as good as I say they are, then they beat a team who's ranked the 9th best team in the country, because I think they're the best team. If not the best, then they're 2nd, 3rd, 4th. They should beat the 9th best team. But clearly they did not.
Not get clobbered. They got clobbered. Right. They got manhandled. But I do think it was an anomaly, youngster. I really do. Look at what Illinois did throughout the Big Ten season, and put Loyola Chicago in the Big Ten. Where do they finish? 7th, 8th, somewhere in the middle.
I don't know. I don't know. They look way better than Purdue does. Defensively, they're just really, really good.
Well, when I say the middle, youngster, I'm talking about the 7th or 8th seed. Purdue played well during the Big Ten, but, I mean, I look at it, Illinois had a really good run in the Big Ten. That's why I said you play this game. Illinois had a season. Things didn't click in this game, and I think there's a little added pressure. I really believe that, because all I heard leading up to the game is David versus Goliath for being the king of Illinois. You don't think kids, they're in quarantine. You don't think they're on Twitter? You don't think they're on social media? They're reading all this. I'm an Illinois guy. Like, yeah, we should win this game, but holy cow, people are saying Loyola Chicago. Oh, my God, we got to win this game. These are 20-year-old kids, youngster. Remember, I coached that age. The littlest thing can throw those guys off kilter. And I really believe when they're sitting there reading all this stuff about, oh, Loyola Chicago, David versus Goliath, reigning Illinois, how much added pressure went on these guys that they had to win this game?
No.
I'm just saying. What if they wouldn't have played Loyola Chicago? Who knows what would happen?
Sure they'd still be playing. I'm sure they'd still be playing. Because I think Loyola Chicago is pretty damn good.
Yeah, they're good. And I don't want to take anything away from Loyola Chicago, but Illinois is better 8 out of 10 times. And I know they play good defense, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to get the listeners to think, why did Illinois depart as a number 1 seed so early in this tournament? They're 20-year-olds. And all I heard, youngster, every time I logged in my computer and went on social media, it was about the Illinois Loyola Chicago game. That's all I saw. Put yourself back in those shoes. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure, and it gets in your mind. Like, yeah, we're a better team, but oh my God, everybody's talking about how good they win and blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh. All right, carry on. We beat it to the ground.
Yeah, again, very, very disappointing from Illinois. Rutgers, not very disappointing at all. They beat Clemson in the first round, 10-7 matchup, 60-56. It was a back-and-forth game, but Rutgers late. They rebounded well. They played good defense. It was their first tournament win since 1983.
Woo!
38 years, sorry. 38 years since they won a tournament game. It's incredible. I mean,
well,
so again, you can say the Big Ten sucks, but don't say it about Rutgers. Don't say it about Wisconsin. Wisconsin did fine in this tournament. Don't say it about Maryland. They did fine in this tournament. Don't say it about Michigan. They're still playing. Don't say it about Michigan State. They lost as an 11 seed to an 11 seed, who's pretty good. Like, there are teams from the Big Ten who did pretty well or outperformed expectations. Rutgers had Houston beat. They were up 9 with 5 minutes left in the second round against a 2 seed.
I know.
5 minutes left.
I know.
They were up 9 with 5 minutes left, and then they got outscored 14-2. Done. Over.
Yeah, I know. Don't remind me.
I was so excited for Rutgers beating a 2 seed. I was like, holy, you know what? This is unbelievable. Fantastic. And then they gave it away. And so at the end of the day, it's like, oh, man, that's disappointing. And Iowa, very disappointing. Illinois, very disappointing. Purdue, very disappointing. Ohio State, very disappointing. Michigan State had UCLA beat. At the end of the game, they lost it. Lost in overtime. Disappointing. Like, there's so many little disappointing moments, but then at the end of the day, like, you look at the 1 seeds, Michigan's still playing. Illinois, completely disappointing. Ohio State, disappointed. Purdue, disappointed. Like,
you got
there's so
three
many
of the teams. You got 3 youngsters. 3 teams pooed to bed.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there were 3 of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten.
That's
the
issue. You can say the Big Ten.
That's where people are going. That's why they're saying the Big Ten is overrated, not the best team in the world, or conference in the world. Because 3 of the top 4 teams poo-poo. The thing is, go to the Big Ten standings, and you get 1 or 2 more wins from 5, 6, 7, and you have a totally different top 4 in that conference. Or maybe a different top 5. That conference is just so deep. But, yeah, that's the problem. 1 through 4, you only get 3 teams lost.
And 1 through 5.
It is.
I mean, Purdue. Purdue was clearly played like a top 5 Big Ten team this year, and they played like garbage. I mean, so 4 of the top 5 teams clearly disappointed. That's why the Big Ten's getting you-know-what on at the end of the day. It's not the middle guys. It's not Michigan. Like, they all did fine or did better than you thought this first weekend. Rutgers did better than you thought. Michigan's still playing. Some people had them out in the second round like you, Troy. That's not a crazy thought. Wisconsin, a lot of people had out in the first round. They made it to the second. Like, Michigan State had UCLA beat and lost. It's an 11-11 matchup. Like, I'm not going to throw shade on Michigan State for losing that. Maryland, a lot of people had them out in the first round. They got to the second round. They shut down UConn. They played well. You know? Then you lose to a better team. It is what it is. But, again, if you want to say the Big Ten sucks, say they suck, but point the fingers at the top guys outside of Michigan because they're still playing. But the other top guys, like that's who you can throw shade on. But the whole conference.
All right, youngster.
That's my thought.
Yeah, let's wrap her up.
Yeah.
We'll get back at these wonderful folks next week and talk about the remaining Big Ten team.
Yeah, Michigan, Florida State. That's 3/28. When is that? Is that Saturday? Let's see, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, that's Saturday. So Michigan plays Florida State Saturday.
And maybe we're talking about a Michigan run, but we'll see. All right, for the youngster, I am the old man. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Be great. Keep smiling. We'll get back at you soon. Enjoy your day.